Thank you so much for coming to talk about your son. It was a pleasure to have him and help me with my testing ability. That's what this course was for. Not for you to use and go forward anywhere else, but to help me learn and understand what I'm trying to do in my future, which is be a writing specialist. And Rico was a joy to have. He was very cooperative, and that's part of his strengths. He was so well-mannered, and he knew ahead of time what he had to do, which was a real pleasure. He was ready to help me, which was nice. His other strengths were his word list. He read them with no hesitation. He went through each level and had no issues, which was a big help in determining where to start his levels off. Another strength he had was his fluency when he read. It was fluent without any frustration. You know, he read it through and kept going, which was good. He retells a story. After he read, I had to ask him, please tell me the story in your own words without me telling him anything, and he had to retell it back to me. And he did that with the beginning, middle, and end, so he knows the structure of a story, which is good. His other strength is his background, especially in the areas of nonfiction. One story was about Lincoln, and another one was Martin Luther King, and he knew his history. He had prior knowledge, and that helped him with the content. So that was a great strength he had too. So he's remembering things that he's learning in school, which is a good thing. Another strength was his writing ability. I asked him to write me a story about anything he wanted, and of course it was about quads. And he wrote the story, and it had, again, a plot, a beginning, middle, and end, which is also a good thing that he did. So, and his handwriting was readable. I could read it with no problems. A little bit of a slant, but it was still readable and no problems. I can understand everything he was saying. So then his areas of weakness, not many. Reading the passage, Rico would skip words or miss the whole line, which I think was a sign of, if he didn't know it, he would just pass it by. And, I don't know why. There could be a couple of reasons, and I'll get to that later. Another area that he can improve is comprehension questions. And we find that a lot, even being a teacher now in the high school. If the student doesn't understand exactly what they're reading, then they're not going to comprehend. And I found that although he was reading fluently, he didn't remember what he was reading. And that's as it got more difficult. He had that difficulty with comprehension. And I'll give you some pointers on how to help him with that. And the last part that I would like him to improve is punctuation and sentence structure. Just that, so when he wrote his story, beginning, middle, end, plot, but then no punctuation. So it kind of just flowed all the way through with maybe one period with a whole paragraph. So nothing that practice won't fix. So my recommendations, and again, are just from my experience in class and just things for you to think about, is to work on his comprehension skills. So maybe have Rico retell a story after he reads something, after he sees it on TV, or after you go somewhere, maybe have him just retell it and see how much he's actually remembering. Another way you could do it is to ask him to summarize. If he has a reading assignment at home, say, Rico, just summarize, tell me a little bit of what it was about. Instead of him trying to remember everything, maybe if he can get the key points, that would be helpful for him. Another thing that I recommend is story maps or graphic organizers. And there's a bunch of different ways you can do that, and I have some sites that you can look at. But even just writing it down and keeping track of characters, of setting, main points that happen in the story, maybe if he writes it down and he can go back to it, it would help him with that. Especially, I don't know what's going to happen in school, but I know some schools have accelerated reader, and when they get tested on it, and if he can go back instead of reading it all over again, if he could just look back at his notes, that might be a big help. Other types of writing, to go back to his writing ability, although he could tell me a story in his writing, the punctuation can lead to difficulty, so you don't know if it's clear where the story is going. So it might be helpful for him to look at his sister's writing, because especially when she goes to college, she's going to have writing courses, and she's going to have to write stories, and she'd say, Rico, look at my story. What do you think of this? And as he sees the punctuation, he'll be like, oh, I'm supposed to put that in there. Or when you have to write up your forms, even if he just looks at it to see oh, mommy has to punctuate too. It might help him to see different things going on, and because maybe he's not seeing enough of it right now. So that might be helpful. So I gave you some websites. A really good one that anybody can use is www.studyisland.com, and I have written these down for you. It's a great site. I use it at school. I've actually seen it used in Carbondale also, and I know they have it in school, and maybe you can use it at home. They have fun games. They have stories that he can use, and it's something that he may see at home and then go to school and see it and be like, oh, I know this, and it might be easier for him to use. Another great one is www.scholastic.com, and that you can go on and pick the topic. And because he's into his karate and quadding and all that boy stuff, instead of it being a story that he might not be interested in, you could focus on what he likes. History, and he likes the history stuff, and you could tell that by his background knowledge that he's more interested in that. And usually boys are. And then I also found another one, PBS Kids, and I think you remember that when we were younger, PBS. It's still there, and it looked really fun for him, cartoonish, younger, and it had games, and it would have comprehension skills on there too, and writing skills. So just, even if his sister is like, oh, look at this cool website, and then maybe he'll get interested and put it in the favorites, and every once in a while when he's bored, you could say, hey, why don't you try this website, and maybe he'll get interested in it. But I know technology is the big thing to do, instead of just being paper and pencil. Go onto the computer. Now the very last thing is, remember when I told you about him skipping words and skipping the whole line? He may need to see an optometrist, an eye doctor again. I don't know when the last time he was checked, but that could be a reason why he was skipping the word. Was he not noticing it? I don't know. I don't know what caused him to actually skip the line. It could have been he didn't know it or he didn't see it. So that would be my very last recommendation. So overall, he's a great kid. He was willing and helpful, and he did a great job. And he was excited about it, about helping me, which is really nice. And he did a great job. And I appreciate him helping me and you letting him help me, because it was a great experience. And he actually did just like my program thought he would do for his age group and what he was supposed to do. So he did a great job, and I appreciate it. And I want to thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It was a pleasure.
Thanks.
You're welcome.
Cut.